Hey everybody, Damian G again representing Big Gold Belt Media. Find us on all social medias, BGB Group on Twitter, Big Gold Belt on Instagram, and BigGoldBeltGroup.com. Find me on Twitter at DamianG347 and Damian Gracia47 on Instagram. So this episode is pretty much dedicated to the fact that even though sports is no longer in session as of right now, thanks to the coronavirus, there still are some soap opera aspects of sports going on, and the free agency period of the NFL started recently, and that got me thinking to how sports business and athletes and owners, aside from labor negotiations, the soap opera of a tenured player either being released by their teams, let go, or leaving for greener pastures, whatever they deem as greener, money or otherwise, when they leave their team via free agency. You know, when players and teams divorce via business decisions, how do you deal with that? How does the player cope with that psychologically? How did the fans cope with that? How does the team deal with that? Now, a lot of you know I like to get into the background of a lot of these things. And to be quite honest, it's just like a breakup. It's a breakup. It's a breakup of your team and your player. For whatever reason caused the breakup, if they're traded or released, you go through those breakup symptoms. If you've been with someone or even a job for so long, you have these strong emotions that you feel inside your system. There's a lot of anger potentially. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of internal suffering and struggling. There may be some sleepless nights about how things played out. There'll be some remorse. There'll be a lot of reflection, especially if it ended on acrimonious terms, because let's be honest, not every breakup is going to be great in any kind of relationship, sports or otherwise. So when athletes leave a team or when a team gets rid of a beloved athlete, you go through these symptoms. You go through these, even as fans, you feel everything. You get annoyed. You get angry. Who do you blame? Do you blame the team? Do you blame the player? Do you blame the fan base? Which I don't understand why a fan base would matter in this situation, but some people take that to heart. I can tell you my first real big sports memory of my favorite player leaving a team growing up, and that was Darryl Strawberry for the New York Mets. And he was my favorite New York Met when I was a kid, and I'm a Mets fan, a long-suffering Mets fan. And I didn't know really what free agency was as being a kid. So for me thinking, hey, why did Straw leave to go to the Los Angeles Dodgers? I couldn't fathom it. You know, I was naive enough to think athletes are going to, and this was during my athletes are superheroes phase, which a lot of young sports fans go through. I thought Darryl Strawberry leaving, I was crushed. As I got older and my fandom changed, I realized it was just a business. I remember I was so mad at Mets ownership when Jose Reyes left for the Marlins in the mid-2000s. I was pissed. I was angry at the Mets because Mets ownership, as a lot of Mets fans know, isn't the best ownership group going on right now. But I felt all that. I felt, okay, who's the selfish one here? Was it the Mets? Was it Jose Reyes? And that's what sports fans go through. They go through this gamut of emotions of anger, rage, hatred, love, pain, everything. But then when you look a little closer, as I tend to do, it's not that simple. There are a lot of egotistical factors, and I don't mean that in a bad way. There's a lot of aspersions being cast on people. Is player X being selfish? Is the team being selfish? And then you realize this is strictly business. When it all comes down to it, sports is a game that's been made into a business. So when your favorite team either gets rid of your favorite player or your favorite player leaves your team, it's business. It's a business decision overall. You've seen athletes all over the world leave for higher contracts, better contracts, betting on themselves, improving what they're worth, and maximizing their dollars. And I'm the kind of person that will always say, maximize your dollars, because you only have a finite amount of time before your athletic ability is taken from you by the only undefeated person in all of life, and that is time. And that is time and aging, if you want to call them a tag team. So one or two things. But honestly, when we're watching it play out, especially on news media outlets and ESPN and Fox and all these other sports media outlets and Twitter now, because let's be honest, Twitter is probably as big as a sports medium in terms of media and sports news as these websites are, or as these cable channels are. Gone are the days where I would get all of my things through ESPN or through Sports Center or through any kind of sports news media, Sports Illustrated, be it through media, through magazines or media through television. Now we have social media, media, and that's where we get a lot of our news from. And that's where a lot of preliminary reactions come from, especially players, I've noticed too. That's one thing for me, I've always said, and I will always echo the words of former New York Jets coach Herman Edwards saying, think before you hit send. But in the NFL, it's been hilarious. The NBA is hilarious. When players are dealt or released, the first thing they do is go to social media and vent their frustrations. And then the fan is left to say, well, they could have handled it privately. And you get all these little battles happening. But the best part about it just makes me happy to see is because, hey, it keeps guys like me talking. It keeps people like Big Gold Belt having topics to continue to talk about. And I'm very grateful for the soap opera that is sports in general. But are the athletes selfish? Is the business selfish? Is it unemotional? I think a lot of it, too, is unemotional attachment or non-emotional attachment of just knowing I got to get paid, man. I got to maximize my dollars. Or there's the other way where people are willing to take a pay cut, and this doesn't happen usually until an athlete's later in life career, which I will get to shortly when an athlete's at the end of their career. You got to do what's best for you and your family. And I feel that way about ownership too. You got to do what's best for your business. We give owners a hard time. I give owners a hard time all the damn time saying, really? But this is why front offices, they evaluate talent. They look at a person's value. We have all these litmus tests now. In basketball, there's PER. In baseball, there's WAR. And QBR for quarterbacks in the NFL, there's these wins above replacement, which is WAR. These things all go into it. So it's not so simple anymore of they're just going to pay me the highest buck. Or we can't afford to pay this person what they think they're worth. Because there's so many now variables at play. Were they a good teammate? Were they a bad teammate? Were they glory hogs? Did they bring together the team? Did they make their team better? Because one person right now comes to mind, and that's Joe Flacco, who I found out at the time of this recording. Joe Flacco, formerly of the Baltimore Ravens, formerly of the Denver Broncos, who was one of those keep getting them checks athletes that I'll never understand. You win one Super Bowl and you get paid so much money, but that's neither here nor there. He, in my opinion, was one of the most overrated quarterbacks that I've seen in a long time, and yet he was able to parlay that into millions and millions of dollars. And there's another one out there, and I'll bring him up later. But Joe Flacco is now at the tail end of his career. And I think anyone who's a fan of Joe Flacco or athletes like that who toward the tail end, who just, you don't got it anymore. You know, my dad talked about Willie Mays, formerly of the New York Giants in baseball back in the day. And then he finished his career playing with the New York Mets. And he was stumbling around the outfield looking old, disheveled, and a shell of his former self. And this brings me to my next point as I talk to you via the Big Gold Belt Media. Tom Brady. Tom Brady has left the New England Patriots. Interesting, right? When you really think about it. My man is in his early 40s, playing quarterback in the NFL, and he left probably his best situation of all time, the best quarterback and coach situation of all time, of him and Bill Belichick, to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, why did Tom Brady do this, I wonder? Well, one, money. Two, opportunity. And third, which I didn't realize until I started doing this episode, was this is potentially a branding opportunity for Tom Brady. TB12 is his gimmick, so to speak, his company. What other initials are TB? Tampa Bay. This might be a marketing scheme as much as it is a football scheme for Tom Brady. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to win the Super Bowl because who knows why athletes do this at the tail end of their careers. Maybe they want to prove a point. Maybe they want to show they still got it. Maybe it's just ego. Maybe because it's all they have and they're hanging on at the end. But I find it hilarious when athletes kind of are having a chip on their shoulder, proving that they can do it, proving that they still got it, and going back, analyzing it as a business. The team no longer sees them as a valuable commodity. All right, bye. So now we have someone like Tom Brady finishing up their career potentially with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I wouldn't be surprised if they're called the Tampa Bay Bradys by the end of this year. But there's been plenty of athletes that did that finished their career with other teams. And right now, springing to mind, Hakeem Olajuwon finished up with Toronto. You know, when the Knicks got rid of Patrick Ewing and he finished up with Orlando, Joe Montana finished up with the Chiefs. So it's hilarious to me when athletes who are at the end of the career, Peyton Manning with the Broncos, who had nothing left in the tank and they still won a Super Bowl. Emmitt Smith leaving the freaking Cowboys and finishing of all teams with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I'm all for grab the bag, secure the bag, because this is all you got. But when you have nothing left, like I brought up with the the phrasing of Willie Mays looking disheveled and dilapidated in center field, how much is enough? Now, I'm not saying Brady's going to fall off, but I predict that Tom Brady is not going to put up all-pro numbers. Do I think he might bring a winning culture to Tampa Bay? Yes. Do I think it's going to be worth the money just from a box office perspective, from ownership's side of it? Yes. So I think, honestly, we bring it all the way back, folks, for it being a sports business. Athletes want to maximize their dollars. Owners want to maximize the value of said athlete without overpaying in a business, which is, what have you done for me now, more so than what have you done for me lately? Now, I want you guys to think about this. So before I get out of here, I want to just leave you with a couple of questions. Number one, which was your favorite team leaving player XYZ moment? And by that, I mean, what's a player you were really attached to that you felt some type of way after they left or they were traded? And how'd you feel about it? Were you mad at ownership or were you mad at the player? Because I know a lot of people get mad at players by burning jerseys, but I'm curious to know, what was one for you that really stuck out? And what's another athlete at the end of their career where you thought, oh, this is a Michael Jordan at the end of the Wizards situation? And a lot of people don't remember, Michael Jordan finished his career with the Washington Wizards, which he was a part owner of. So kind of weird, right? When you look at it that way, it's just painful when athletes at the end of their careers have nothing left, but they still got to maximize the dollars. And then sometimes, like I said in my first episode, when sports is all sports fans have, what if sports are all the athletes have? And that's something I want to touch on a future episode. This is Damian G of Big Gold Belt Media. Again, my two questions to you that I'm posing: what situation where a team and player split were you most affected by, and who did you side with? And number two, what's one moment where an athlete at the end of their career where you kind of sat back and said, oh, this is strictly a money grab and this is just sad? As always, you can find us at BGB Group on Twitter, Big Gold Belt on Instagram, BigGoldBeltGroup.com. Me, Damian G, sportscaster, broadcaster, podcaster extraordinaire, who does lessons for people who are interested. Damian G347 on Twitter, Damian Gracia47 on Instagram, and I will catch you next time. See ya.